There's a specific kind of quiet hurt that comes from finding out you were never the first call. Not the last resort, not forgotten completely, just never the first name that comes to mind. You find out in small ways, a weekend you weren't told about until after it happened, a joke that references a night you weren't there for. We should hang out soon, that somehow never turns into plans, while everyone else's plans seem to happen without effort at all. And it's not dramatic. Nobody does anything wrong on purpose. That's what makes it hard to even bring up. You can't accuse someone of excluding you when technically they never did. They just didn't think of you, and somehow that's worse. Being actively left out means you mattered enough to exclude. Being an afterthought means you didn't even register. You start noticing the pattern once you see it. You're the friend people call when their first choice is busy, when their plans fall through, when they need someone reliable to fill a gap. You're never the reason the night happens. You're the reason it still happens, when the person they actually wanted couldn't make it. And for a while you tell yourself that's fine. That's just how friend groups work. Not everyone can be everyone's favorite, but somewhere underneath that logic is a quieter question you don't say out loud. Why does everyone else get chosen first, and I get chosen when there's nothing better available? You know that feeling when you scroll through a story and see a group of people, having a night you weren't invited to. Nobody owes you an invite to everything. You understand that logically, but it still lands somewhere it shouldn't, because it's not really about the plans. It's about what it says. It says you weren't the person they thought of. It says when they pictured who they wanted around them, your face didn't show up. And that's a strange thing to sit with, because you'd have gone. You'd have shown up, been present, added something to the night, but you were never in the equation to begin with. You start doing this thing where you check who's tagged before you let yourself feel anything, hoping there's an explanation, hoping it was just a small thing, a last-minute plan, nothing personal, and sometimes that's true. But sometimes you already know the truth before you finish scrolling. You weren't left out because there wasn't room. You were left out because you weren't who came to mind. And that's a different kind of hurt than rejection. Rejection means someone considered you and said, no, this is quieter than that. This is never being considered at all. You know the difference between someone who's busy and someone who's choosing something else over you, even if they'll never say it that plainly. It's in the way plans with you get moved for anyone else's plans. It's in the way something came up only ever seems to come up when it's you on the other end. You don't get angry about it anymore. Not really. You just quietly notice. You notice who reschedules around you and who reschedules you around them. You notice who apologizes and actually makes it up to you, and who apologizes and lets it become a pattern instead. And you start extending the same energy back, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation, because you can only be the flexible one so many times before flexible starts to feel like disposable. You didn't ask to be someone's convenient option. You never wanted to be the plan that bends around everyone else's plans. You just wanted to matter enough that when something came up, it wasn't automatically you who got moved. And realizing that you're always the one who understands, always the one who says it's fine, always the one who doesn't make a big deal out of it. That realization doesn't feel like patience anymore. It starts to feel like erasure. There's always someone else. The person they text first when something good happens. The person whose name comes up in every story before yours does. The person they'd call at 2 a.m. without hesitation, while you're the one they'd call if that person didn't pick up. And it's not that you dislike that person. Most of the time, you don't even know them well enough to dislike them. It's just the quiet comparison your mind makes without asking permission. You watch how differently you're treated. You watch the effort that gets given freely to someone else and has to be asked for with you. You watch how your presence gets acknowledged and their presence gets celebrated. And you tell yourself it doesn't matter, that friendships aren't a competition, that everyone has different roles in someone's life. but it's hard not to wonder what you'd have to be different, what you'd have to give more of, what version of yourself would finally be enough to move up the list. Except that's the wrong question, and some part of you already knows it, because the answer was never about what you lack. It's about the fact that some people already decided who matters most to them, and you were never in the running to begin with. Not because you weren't good enough, because you weren't who they were looking for. Here's the part that actually hurts the most. You still show up every time. You remember their birthday without a reminder. You check in when they go quiet. You listen when they need to vent, even when you're the one who needed someone first. You're consistent in a way that costs you something, and you do it because that's who you are, not because you expect anything back. But somewhere along the way, you stopped noticing that the consistency only flows one direction. You're reliable. They're not. You show up. They show up when it's convenient. You remember the small things. They forget the big ones. And you keep doing it anyway, because stopping feels like giving up on the friendship, and you're not built to give up on people easily. But there's a difference between loyalty and self-neglect, and you cross that line without realizing it. Being someone's safety net isn't the same as being someone's person. Being the one they lean on isn't the same as being the one they choose. And you can be both of those things for someone who will never return the favor for years without them ever noticing the imbalance. Because why would they? It's working fine for them. It's you who's quietly running on empty. Nobody tells you how exhausting it is to care about someone more than they seem to care back, and to feel guilty about noticing it. You catch yourself thinking, maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe this is just how they are with everyone. Maybe I'm the problem for wanting more than they're capable of giving. And that guilt keeps you quiet. It keeps you from bringing it up, because bringing it up feels needy, feels dramatic, feels like making something small into something bigger than it is. So you swallow it. You tell yourself it's fine. You keep showing up the same way, hoping that eventually the imbalance corrects itself, hoping that if you're patient enough, consistent enough, understanding enough, they'll finally see you the way you see them. But hope isn't a strategy, and patience isn't the same as being valued. You can wait years for someone to prioritize you the way you prioritize them, and some people will never get there, not because they're bad people, but because they never had to. You already give it freely. Why would they work for something they already have? And that's the quiet trap of being a reliable friend to the wrong people. Your reliability becomes the reason nothing ever changes. At some point, you start keeping track, even if you don't want to. Who texted first? Who asked how the other's day went? Who remembered the small detail from 3 weeks ago? You hate that you do it because it feels petty, feels like you're turning friendship into a transaction. But you do it anyway because it's the only way to finally see the pattern clearly instead of explaining it away every single time. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You realize how much of the closeness you thought you had was really just you doing the work of closeness by yourself. You realize how many conversations you carried, how many check-ins you initiated, how many times you showed up first so the friendship wouldn't go quiet. That's not friendship, that's maintenance. And you weren't meant to be someone's maintenance crew while they got to enjoy the version of connection you built without ever building it back. Keeping score isn't about becoming bitter. It's about finally being honest with yourself about where you actually stand instead of where you've been imagining you stand this whole time. Eventually you get tired, not of the people, but of shrinking your expectations to match what they're willing to give. You get tired of calling inconsistency busy, calling forgetfulness normal, calling being an afterthought just how some people are. And somewhere in that exhaustion, something shifts. You stop chasing a spot on someone's priority list that they were never going to make room for. You stop over-explaining why you need to matter to the people you give so much to. You stop being available for everyone who's only available for you when it's convenient for them. It doesn't happen loudly. You don't cut people off dramatically or announce that you're done. You just quietly start giving your energy where it's actually met instead of where it's constantly hoped for. And that's not coldness. That's not giving up on people. That's finally understanding that being a good friend to someone doesn't mean you owe them your patience forever. If they've never shown you they value it, you can care about someone and still stop being their backup plan. You can love people and still stop being the one who's always available, always understanding, always last on the list, and first to forgive it.